Good morning to those of you just entering the Zoom room. Please take a moment to check in for the presentation this morning. We have the QR code and we also have a URL address, whichever works best for you. This presentation is being recorded and I already started that recording. I do not see Frank Baca in the room yet. Hopefully he'll be joining us this morning. He was going to be speaking to the access piece, which I know is a hot topic. So hopefully he'll be able to join us this morning. Just so you're aware, I am recording this meeting. I've already started the recording, and once it's approved through our web services, it will be posted on our web page. Good morning, Nellie. I don't see Frank yet. Do you? Don't see him in the room. Oh, there he is. Excellent.
Morning. Good morning.
Hey. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started out of respect for your time. I know this is a very busy time of year for you all. Nellie, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop admitting people. I'll let you handle that.
I got it, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning. We are excited to speak to you this morning about the WorkApp the WorkApp initiative. Hold on just a moment. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And then I'm going to get back in. My slide. Oh, there we go. Before I jump in, I do need to share this disclaimer with you. I'm sure many of you have seen this before, but essentially it states that what we're sharing with you this morning is our most current understanding of the content, and it's subject to change. And if you require legal advice, you would want to seek legal counsel. So joining us this morning is myself. I'm Laura Salazar, and I'm the Post-Award Compliance Unit Manager within the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division. And this training or presentation is about our WorkApp that we have launched. Joining me, I have Nellie Nino. She's our team lead. She'll be fielding any questions in the Q&A. We do have that enabled. We had a bit of a problem with the last time, but hopefully it'll be working for you. If you do attempt to put something in the Q&A and for some reason it's not allowing you to do so, please always feel free to come off mute and pose your question. We also have with us this morning Frank Baca, and he is our access guru. So I know that folks typically have a lot of questions about access, and so we asked Frank if he could join us this morning, and he graciously agreed to be here. So he'll be fielding any questions and speaking to the access piece of the WorkApp. So this morning, we'll be giving you an overview of the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting WorkApp. And through the course of the presentation, what we hope to accomplish is that you're able to see how to navigate through that WorkApp. You'll have an understanding of the dynamic views that are available, and then also the dashboard that's available through the WorkApp, that you'll understand the type of information that's accessible there, how to locate documents, how to submit comments if you choose to do so, when you might receive a push notification from the WorkApp, and then how to gain access to it. Before I go further, though, I do want to do a bit of a temperature check on your background knowledge about the WorkApp systems that we currently have via TEA that are available to you. Some of you are probably really well versed in them and have been using them for a bit, and others may not be as well versed. So I just want to have an understanding before I move forward with how familiar you are with the available work apps through TEA. And give it one more minute. Okay, thank you for being responsive to that. So looks like about 20% of you are pretty familiar with the WorkApp systems and you utilize them regularly. About 42% of you are aware of them and you just utilize them occasionally. And then about 13% you don't currently have access, but you're aware. And 25% you're not familiar with the work apps at all. So I'm going to share those results. So we have quite a range of experience with the work apps in the room here, and that's great. For those of you who are completely unaware of what a work app is and how they're being utilized, work apps are a part of a Smartsheet system. So a Smartsheet is basically, as Frank once put it, is like Excel on steroids. So a Smartsheet can house a lot of data, and we utilize Smartsheets through the post-award compliance unit with our post-award application reviews. We track every bit of information about the process of the reviews, the status, all the dates associated with those reviews. If there were issues with the application and an amendment needs to take place, all of that's tracked through a Smartsheet. And what we're able to do with that Smartsheet is we're able to create individualized views via a connection to email addresses. And that individualized view is called a dynamic view. We're then able to take that dynamic view and link it up through what's called a work app. And you could think of a work app as essentially like a housing space for these dynamic views that are associated with Smartsheets. So that's a little bit of background. I know that for those of you who aren't familiar at all, it's probably pretty abstract, but as I walk you through our work app, hopefully you'll be able to start to make connections. Okay. So with the work app, what the purpose is behind utilizing this tool is we hope to increase accessibility and visibility for LEAs and ESCs. So all the post-award compliance reviews that we do with federal grant applications are housed in these Smartsheets. And through creating these dynamic views and then linking them up through the work app, it creates more visibility for the end user, for the field, for you to see the applications that have been reviewed, the status of those reviews, if an amendment's required, information associated with the need for that amendment, and also there is documentation housed in the WorkApp system so that you're able to access all the reports associated with those reviews. We also got feedback from the field that some folks felt overwhelmed by the amount of emails that we were sending out associated with our post-award reviews of the federal grant applications. So this WorkApp is in response to that feedback as well. And we, don't want to be overwhelming the field with emails. So through the utilization of this tool, the only time you would be getting a direct email is when an amendment is required. Beyond that, you'll have reports in the system, but if an amendment's not required, you wouldn't be receiving an email directly from us. So the WorkApp is a space where you can go reference those reports and the status of the reviews without all those emails going out to you. So the WorkApp is a tool where you can reference all the different aspects of the federal grant applications that we've completed. This is a sampling of the WorkApps that are available through TEA. When you gain access, or you may have access already, this is ours right here, the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division WorkApp. And you would click on that WorkApp as your starting point, and then it's going to take you into a variety of dynamic views, one of which is our dashboard. And I'll show you in a moment a snippet, an overview of what the dashboard has to offer. And then in addition to that, you'll have dynamic views for the post-award compliance review status of the federal grant applications. Also, if you're a part of the random sampling of the BS 6016 data validation, you'll have a dynamic view in there where you can see the status of that validation. So the dashboard is it's an overview of division-wide information. So one of the bits of feedback that we got from the field is that folks were wanting a space where important dates and deadlines were housed in one place for our division. So we created a link on the dashboard where you can click on that and then you can view important dates and deadlines division-wide. Another bit of feedback that we got from the field is that folks wanted a space where they could look at all the training opportunities for our division in one place and also be able to access the PDF versions of the trainings prior to the training taking place. So you'll also be able to, when you click on the training opportunities, and I'll take you into a live version in a moment, you'll be able to see there's a space where you can see all the trainings. You can register for the trainings on that page, and you can also download the PDF versions of the trainings prior to attending. In addition to that, we have a division survey where we take feedback at any point that you want to give it. It's just an ongoing tool for you to where you can leave us feedback about the resources that we have on our webpage. You can also request trainings that you feel might be of use to you. So I'll take you to that in a moment as well, where you can always provide us feedback and we'll be responsive to that, and we do check it regularly. We also have on the dashboard links to all the different web pages that are associated with the work that we do in the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division. There's more to the live dashboard down below what's shown in this snippet. There's specific information about the post-award compliance unit. So when I take you into the live version, I'll show you that bit of the dashboard that's not visible here. These are dynamic view examples. So again, the dynamic view, for those of you who are totally unfamiliar, is where you can have your own personalized view of the data that's housed in a smart sheet that we're utilizing to track post-award compliance reviews of federal grant applications. And also the BS 6016 eligibility standard random data validations. There's a dynamic view for that as well. So what you'll find in the dynamic view when you click on it, and in your case, it would be the post-award compliance review status for LEAs. You'll be able to see the grant application that was reviewed or is currently being reviewed. You'll be able to see the date of the review, if an amendment was required, when we notified you that an amendment was required, and if the required corrections were completed. And also, if there are any comments in the system, you could view that here. I'll show you in a moment through your dynamic view how you can also leave comments for us. And there is what we call a trigger that's in place to where if you leave a comment, we'll immediately receive an email letting us know that there's a comment in there for us to view. Very similar is the eligibility standard random data validation dynamic view. We take a 10% sample for out of the special education consolidated federal grant application. And if you're a part of that 10% sample, you would see information here about the data validations. We will let you know ahead of time if you're a part of that 10%. So you would know to be going in there and looking. So there's that dynamic view that's specific to that as well. You can see the status of the validation, any supporting documentation and when it was received, and if an amendment is required. There's more to that particular dynamic view in terms of data points, and I'll be able to show you that in a moment when I take you into the live version of it. This is a more in-depth view of the dynamic view. So when you're in your dynamic view, if you want to see the documentation that's housed in there, you would click on the row for that specific grant application. And then what opens up to you is this details panel that you see here. If there's documentation in there, you'll see it in the attachments tab. You'll see that there's an attachment there. You would click on that tab, and then there's a PDF version of a document there, which when you click on it, it automatically downloads to your computer. If there are comments in the system, you would see that as well. You can click on the comments tab and view whatever comments are in there. That's also, I'll show you in a moment in the live version, that's where you would leave comments as well via the comments tab. If an amendment's required for a post-award review that we've done, that's the only time we would be sending out a push notification to you via this system. And what that looks like is essentially an email that's coming from the WorkApp system. We also, to cover our bases, to make sure that you are receiving everything and all the documentation. If an amendment's required, we're also going to make sure that we send out an email with all the resources and documents that you'll need to complete that amendment process. Any questions, Nellie, that we need to address before I move on?
Laura, we did have one question a little earlier on that said, what is the max amount of emails that is allowed for each entity?
I believe, Frank, you mentioned that it was that you like to keep it around 5, but there's more capacity. Is that accurate?
Very much so, yes. It's kind of an analogy I use is a car on the highway. You can fit 5 people in a car very nicely, traffic flows. But as we start to add more people, we have to go above a car. So we have to get maybe a bus. And what happens then is things start to slow down a bit. So you have 5, no questions asked, maybe another few, maybe 1 or 2 questions, but anything after that, it has to be on a case by case basis. So just be vigilant about removing and adding those users. If anyone leaves, of course, we can fill that spot with somebody else. So stay on top of that for me.
Anything else, Nellie? Thank you, Frank.
That's it. Thanks, Frank.
Okay, so in the WorkApp system, if there are documents uploaded to the system, the types of documents you'll find there for the post-award federal grant application reviews, if an amendment's required, we create a preliminary report. That preliminary report outlines the item to be addressed, and then we're also sharing supportive resources with you to complete that amendment that's required. So what you'll find in the system is that preliminary report outlining what's needed for the amendment. You'll also find final reports in there. There are 2 different scenarios for when we would issue final reports. One, we've reviewed your, for example, as a consolidated federal grant application post-award, and there were no issues. So we still draw up a final report to let you know we've reviewed it and that we didn't find any issues of non-compliance. So you would be able to access that report via the system. That's what we used to send out every time we would do a review, whether it required an amendment or not. And we did receive feedback like, I feel like I'm getting these emails left and right, you know, it's a lot. So that's why the WorkApp system is, that's a part of the reasoning behind utilizing it, is to reduce the number of emails that we're sending out. So you'll still be able to access that final report if there were no issues. We just won't be emailing it out to you directly. Another scenario for a final report is when we've reviewed, say you've had to submit an amendment, and then that's gone through GA's process, and then they've awarded the NOGA for that amendment. And then we review it again to make sure that everything's in alignment. And then we issue you a final report after we've reviewed the amendment. So those are the 2 different scenarios where a final report would be in the system. And then we also, any supportive resources that we've created or schedule instructions that we're pointing you to, we have a specific resource we created about how to actually submit the amendment, because some folks are new to this role and they're new to being responsible for the grant applications, and you know, they may not even know where to start with submitting an amendment. So there are resources that will be housed in the system in the hopes that we're looking to be supportive of you being able to complete that amendment. And then in terms of the BS 6016 random data validations, you'll be able to see any documentation associated with that validation, any feedback of the progress of the validation, and then again, any relevant resources or documentation that would be helpful to you in that process will be housed in the WorkApp for you to access. Any questions, Nellie, about documentation and what's in the system or anything else?
Actually, Frank's a popular guy today. We've got a question for Frank. It says, "Hi, Frank." They're being very friendly. "I used to be able to get into the WorkApp system. Now I'm having trouble. Where can I find the link? I want to clear my cache and retry fresh."
Yeah, I think the most important link and getting into the TA WorkApps is workapps.smartsheet.com. I would go there and I would bookmark that. You always want to start there. That's always going to be your starting point. So workapps.smartsheet.com. And then once you log in, you should be able to see all the tiles of everything that's available to you. Now, one thing I do kind of give out as a troubleshooting is when you log into Smartsheet, it gives you a bunch of options like log in with Gmail, log in with Facebook, use a code. You don't want to use any of those things. You want to log in with your school email address and that password. Don't do the code thing because sometimes that gets hung up in your IT filter defense system over there. So, and then one way, a really easy way to find out whether you're logged in correctly or not is at the bottom left hand, and I'll show you this a little later. Bottom left hand of your screen is an image of a profile of a little person. If you hover over that or click on that, it will show you the email address that you're in as. So if it's something other than your school email address, then we're probably not going to have access to that particular account. So keep that in mind too.
Great. Thanks, Frank.
Welcome.
And then Laura, we have one other question, and I was going to answer it, but I thought maybe you could speak to it. Will LEAs be notified when there's action to be taken on the WorkApp? That's the push notifications that you were talking about?
Yes. If an amendment's required, then you'll receive a push notification from the WorkApp system. And you'll also receive notification from the post-award compliance unit mailbox. So we just want to make sure that, you know, that we're reaching you. So yes, you will receive notification from the WorkApp if an amendment's required. And we'll in a moment when we get to the access part of this, if you don't currently have access, then Frank will walk through the process of obtaining that so that when you do receive a push notification, you'll be able to go in and access everything and see the documentation that's in the system.
Great. Thanks, Laura.
Okay. So I'm going to take us into the live WorkApp now. So I'm going to go into your view. And these are the 3 different views that you'll have. You'll have a dashboard. You'll have the post-award compliance review status dynamic view. And then there's a random data validation dynamic view. Again, if you're not a part of that 10% sample, then you won't be seeing anything in the random data validation view. So just so you're aware of that, don't panic if you go in there and you don't see anything. So this is the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division dashboard, which, as I mentioned earlier, is an overview of information for our division. We did get feedback about those important dates and deadlines, which is understandable because it's a lot to keep track of. So there is a smart sheet now that's linked up through here where any important dates and deadlines will be updated in here, and you can click on that and you can see it in one place. You'll be able to see the relevant date, the project that it's associated with, and then the topic. This, as I mentioned earlier, is where you can see training opportunities. In fact, you can see right here, the compliance unit is doing a training right after our at 11 or 10, actually, yes, 10 o'clock. So I don't know if you're signed up for this, but it is the registrations through Region 20. Here's the registration link if this is something you would want to attend this morning. So any trainings that are taking place will be listed here. You'll have a registration link here. You'll see who's facilitating it, the duration, and then right here is where you can download the PDF version of the training. That survey I mentioned earlier, where you can leave us feedback at any time about resources on our web pages, trainings that you might like to see, just any feedback that you have for us. You can go into that survey link and leave us feedback. And as I mentioned, we do check it regularly, and it's important to us to be responsive to your feedback. And so we will be for sure. So if there's something that you'd like to share with us, please do so through this space. Let's see. It's like blocking my. Okay. And then down below here, we have all of the websites that are associated with all the work that we do in this division, the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division. So if there's a specific website, there's just a ton of information and resources housed on these websites. So these are direct links to all those pages. And then down below here, we have information that's more specific to the post-award compliance unit. You can find which I'm sure you're at least somewhat familiar, and probably more than that at this point, with the revised schedules for the ESSA Consolidated Federal Grant Application, the revised schedule instructions, as well as on the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant Applications. There were revisions to that, and all of that you can access here. Resources that we've created or we're pointing you to, you can access that through here. You can get to the grant opportunities page from here, which is an excellent jumping off point for a lot of information. The budgeting cost guidance handbook is also, there's an active link to that here. So there's a lot of information, but we wanted to kind of create a space where for our division, things were a little bit more centralized, but hopefully not completely overwhelming. Down at the bottom, we have information about the random data validations, which hopefully some of you were able to attend the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant Application trainings that we facilitated, and are aware of the shift in the validation timeline. So those will commence in January. But like I said earlier, if you're a part of that 10% sample, we'll let you know in December, and we're going to invite you to a training about what to submit for those validations prior to asking you for any documentation. So that's the dashboard. And then the post-award compliance review status dynamic view. Again, this is a direct view of the information that's housed in our smart sheet that we utilize to track the post-award compliance reviews. This is the live version of it and what it looks like. So if I click on the row, as I mentioned earlier, it opens up a details panel. If you have documents in there, you'll be able to see that there are attachments. When you click on this, it downloads. If there are comments in the system, you'll be able to view them here. And then if you want to leave a comment, you just say add comment, and then type your comment, send it on, and then we will receive a automatic notification that a comment has been left in the system for us. So this is an overview of what the post-award compliance review status dynamic view looks like. If you are selected for the random data validations, this one's slightly different. It'll show you the status, when the review was initiated, when we received the supporting documentation associated with the validation, if the budget was validated, if an amendment was required, when the amendment is received, and then the specific line on the schedule that needed revision if it was a situation where the application needed to be amended due to the validation process. will also show a pass-fail status. And then when the final review, when the review is finalized and the end date for that. Nellie, any questions we need to address about the dynamic
Yes,
views?
Laura, we've got a couple. So, and I may need some help. Valerie, you had entered in the Q&A. So with the revised entitlements for ESSA, are the LEAs that submitted their application being notified through, and then she has FFC and RD, which I'm not sure I understand what that acronym is.
So those revised planning amounts posted, they're there for you currently on the web page, and so you can view the PDF version of that, as well as for those of you who utilize the entitlements dashboard. I hope you do. There also, that dashboard's updated as well. So you'll want to go in and take a look at that. If I'm understanding the question correctly, and I might not be, but we wouldn't be sending you notification through the WorkApp about the revised planning amounts. That would be something you'll want to go in on the entitlements page through grants administration, and you'll want to look at those entitlements, the revised planning amounts for ESSA, and go from there. Does that answer the question, Nellie? Or
I think from the way that I'm looking at it, it looks like she's asking that if their application was submitted and in the time and wasn't awarded yet in the time since the revised finals were released, are LEAs being notified? But I think it's just a matter of that one notification going out, letting people know that the revised finals were have been posted and are available. But insofar as the LEAs being individually notified, I don't think that's, I think you're right in pointing them to the entitlements page.
Yeah, you won't be individually notified. And I mean, if you already submitted the application and it's still in process, I wouldn't fret about that. You could go back in when the finals are issued, and at that point you could initiate that amendment and claim your final entitlement amount. But that's up to you. That's an LEA level decision when you might go into the system and initiate that amendment because of the revised planning amounts or the final.
Okay. Valerie, if you have any further questions, please go ahead and enter them in, and I'll see what I can find out for you. Also, is there a way to print a confirmation of what was uploaded? And I'm assuming has to do with attachments and.
Well, anything that's uploaded into the system, you can download those documents and print them. So that's not an issue. And then in terms of if an amendment were required, you could certainly, print off that notification that came to you via the WorkApp.
Okay. And then, so there are a couple of questions, probably for Frank. It says, whenever I try to log out of Smartsheets, it keeps me in and I have to close it out to get out of it. And then somebody else responded and said, I'm having issues. Also, I use the email and password that I used to log into my account. Did we receive a different password?
Yeah, I think I'll address that one first. So
Thanks,
the Smartsheet system is separate from the TA system and separate from your own workstation password. So you're gonna have to kind of keep track of what your Smartsheet password is. When you first create that account, it would have given you the option to create that password. You could probably use the same one that you use for your workstation, but I don't think Smartsheet ever asks you to change it. So it's always going to be that same one. I think there's a link that says that if you need help with password resetting or anything, you can click on that link and it'll email you directly, and you can work that out with them. That's one thing that we don't have access to is password resetting or password support. So that all goes through Smartsheet. And was there another one whenever I try to
There
log out of
was there
Smartsheet?
was when they're trying to log out of Smartsheet, it keeps me in and I have to close it out to get out of it.
Yeah, it's just one of those browser functionalities where they're trying to be helpful and they're trying to keep the cookie and the session open for you. So a lot of times what I would suggest is opening up like a Google Incognito browser. And what that does is it'll keep the session open while you have the window open. And as soon as you close it, it'll close you out and you're out of Smartsheets. So that's just one of those tips where we try to get around the helpfulness of a browser.
Great. Thanks, Frank.
You're welcome.
Are we good, Nellie?
And then Laura, just one more question. I'm looking at the Region 2 Post Award compliance with LEAs that show no amendment closed.
That means that we reviewed the grant application. We found no issues of non-compliance. So you'll see the status as no amendment closed because amendment wasn't required.
Great. Thanks, Laura.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm going to take us back to a view of the PowerPoint, but I probably won't take it into presentation mode because we're going to be getting into the gaining access piece of this, and I think we'll take you into the live link here so that you can see real time what Frank is talking about.
Great. Yeah, it's just a couple of points here. If you currently have access to any of the other Smartsheets work apps like Edgar Connect or the risk assessment, you have access to everything. So it's kind of a one encased in all. So access to one, you get access to all of them. So the first thing I think you're right, Laura. I think if we go to the live work app, it'll probably help.
Okay.
So what you do need is, if you don't have current access, you need to find someone in your LEA or in your organization that has the access. I would probably just shoot the superintendent a quick email asking if either they can do it for you or if they know exactly who the person is. And if you don't have any response back, email me. My email address is here under my little vision here. I don't know if you can see that. Email me directly and I can either tell you who has access or I can get that whole process started for you. So feel free to reach out. So as I said earlier, workapps.smartsheet.com